Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I just can't see this. Um, I've been in this country for 26 years. Last night I was in the room for almost 6 hours. I was pulled over for the first time by cops. When Jeff was talking about road trips, it was giving me nightmare. The good news, bad news story is I was not speeding, I was out of trouble. My right headlight had got busted in my drive, which I didn't notice. But I went to O'Reilly's Auto Parts this morning and I had the best customer experience where they not only able to buy the headlights, but they also fixed it for me at no cost. So with that seems starting point, right now for a year and a half, today is my 18-month anniversary working at Ford Staff, which is a provider sponsored health plan here, located in Madison, we're in 5 states, over 350,000 members, affiliated to UW Health, Carnation Health, and across Logan Health, and so on. Prior to here, I was the CIO for Canada Health Group, anyway, commercial side background. And I was there for 3 years. I led AI and cybersecurity and 30 different operational positions. I spent 20 years at the Michigan building fleet platform businesses. That's where I really learned what a customer is, what it really has an impact on your business, your growth. We'll share more.
Where's your keyboard?
Others.
What do you? Oh, you wanted to tape something?
Hi, Lisa Pavelski. I work at TrueStage, formerly known as Q Mutual Group here in Madison. My experience has been pretty varied. I started in retail operations, had opportunities to work in finance, bought the buying office, and spent a lot of time thinking about how retailers take those experiences and build them into digital experiences, which was the big leap for me as I moved to TrueStage. And my job here is really to think about how we embed our insurance in our customers' base so that we protect consumers in a B2B2C business model.
Christopher Carter, Chief Experience Officer at Children's Wisconsin. This is a great discussion topic for me because I am at the intersection between digital experience and shared experience, and the in-person experience. I actually am probably the only Chief Experience Officer that started as a software engineer. So I started from the digital side of things and working so user experience design. I joined Children's Wisconsin 8 years ago to start with the digital health program. And at the time, one of my first hire was a health program was a experience research. And a lot of people were like, why are you doing that? Well, our point in doing this is to actually solve customer needs. And so we started looking at solving problems where we offer that value to our children and families. Now I'm sort of extending that out to working in the traditional patient experience space, right? So systems, measurement, service improvement, patient relations, and get to questions back. And technology to get this in balance. It's all about how to create systems around care experience. And so there's a lot of research digital experience and care experience.
Hi, I'm Nicole Judson, and I work at TBS. I've been at TBS for almost 27 years. I had an interesting past and journey there. I actually started in human resources and spent 17 years in various positions, really understanding the people side of the business, and oftentimes recruited for our care centers and our IT folks. I really found a passion for that. Then I spent about 7 years in operations leading our nationwide contact center for sales and connections management services and support teams, and absolutely loved it. The amount of learning and growth within that position was amazing. That's where I learned how important it is that we all understand the customer experience, not just if you have a title or business or whatever, but everybody in the business needs to understand that. So that was a big part of my role, making sure that the facts that we were meeting, even an organizational body that may seem like it doesn't have as much impact, they were thinking about what it means for the agents and the customers. And then about 3 years ago, I moved into IT because I was working with IT so much, and I said, hey, I should try. And that's been a great experience, really helping the business get the people, process, and technology and components together and really helping drive on. So it's been a really good journey, and I appreciate being here.
We're here now, okay. I'm getting things over here. I think there's three questions for you.
Okay.
As we think about leadership and that IT convergence, you've pioneered an aspirating AI framework for business. Digital implementation.
Always ask which serial number may be affected. Contact the persons that have those inventory and inform them that they have a problem, and convey
For those who
what
are not
type of
following
problem
the
this is. This is
Yeah, no, I get it.
And imagine it has three parts to it.
follow up in a couple of hours.
We call it foundation.
If there's no response, hey, any update on this?
The top or the peak of the
When can I get my
pyramid is
response?
called aspiration. So foundational core aspiration. Just visualize that for a
And if
moment.
nothing
I call it
happens,
my pyramid scheme because of it.
their managers,
And,
like Pablo in some case,
the
and if
foundation, think
that
of it
doesn't
like
happen,
what is the fundamental of running your company or your business? Think of customer service, IT, finance, human resources, so on and so forth.
If they're checking.
Coming to the AI and CS,
it's communication both ways.
using Copilot. I'm assuming you use a variation of
That's all.
ChatGPT or Copilot.
You said they're checking.
That could be transferred from any
You
domain
said
to any
you
domain.
guys check.
That is the foundation.
You said you don't.
In the
Well, they have a
is
testing procedure.
for your business. For example,
I haven't
For them.
in
before.
healthcare,
Did you
it's
read
care
that?
delivery,
He said that
it's
the testing
claims
procedure
processing, it's paying the providers,
didn't
it's
because they were not loading
patients,
tools.
with pharmaceutical prescriptions. That's
They have a checking
you can think of in your business.
or they check it without
your
loading a
data
tool.
for your business.
There's
And the
a
top of the pyramid
because
is
that's the
aspirational,
procedure that
which
engineering
is
design
like going
for
to the
manufacture.
Mars,
Manufacture
going to the
execute
concentration where
what they are
you
told
can
to.
actually
Engineering
achieve
designs
that customer
is
experience. You
manufacturing.
can have the sticky customers, you can have revenue growth. So think of foundational core.
Even so,
That's
fix
your
this.
as a brand, as a company.
To fix
What
this,
we try to pioneer is,
BT30 doesn't
can we
change.
take everything we do,
Well, later.
no matter what it is, new or old, and put it in this framework? And examples I'm using can go back and forth. So something can be an aspiration today. Like 15 years ago, creating a mobile app was an aspiration. Now it's foundation. If you're a brand, you need to have a mobile app, right? Similarly, you can go back and forth. But the framework stuck with it. And we started in my previous roles nationally and internationally using this and saying, it's very easy to get distracted. It's very easy to chase the next shiny object, especially when it comes to our customer experience or the new technology or next cool AI tool. But if we have this foundation framework and we are very disciplined about it, it makes the conversation very easy. Many times what happens is, if there are anybody in marketing, the marketing teams and the marketing officers love to work with external agencies and internal IT, right? Because the agencies bring different content and digital. But if you use the framework, then the friction gets reduced. We can say that, hey, we still need a foundation like cybersecurity, whatnot. When it comes to customer experience, think of it like what it is important for your customers. What is non-negotiable? That can be foundational core. What is it that can differentiate you from your competitors, you from other similar companies, similar brands? That's what aspirational. The last point I'll make is many a time sitting in various boards, at least for the last 3 years, where can AI do that? Can AI do this? Can AI do that? Have you heard this? Like anybody's asking, can ChatGPT do that? Because everybody wants an aspirational stuff, but it helps to step back and say, do we have good access to good quality data? Do we have the right talent and the skill sets? Do we have the foundation of the core before we start talking about aspiration? There are shortcuts to get to aspirations, but the philosophy we drive is let's make sure that our foundation and core are strong before we pursue and chase aspiration.
That kind of resonated with you, right?
Yeah, I think when we think about kind of AI usage, kind of where we're always looking at ways. So, like, I think there's so much, we found some gaps. So like, words that is is the machine part we look at our care journeys, right? Like, there is so much inefficiency happening, right? This is certainly not Mr. T as well. But I think that we're looking at that's what I really enjoyed was somebody said, maybe have bad time. And I think that's where we look at a lot of those opportunities. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have, frankly, in the consumer space is now seeing some replacement answers, right? So now everybody is all right, just show hands. Who has taken their test results of ChatGPT? And some of you probably don't want to admit to it. At least it does enhance that. But you have so much of this access to information, right? Access to expertise that makes you able to get to. Now you have this universally available to you. There's this constant kind of churn back and forth. And so what we have to do is how do you provide the right answers or how do you balance what we have. I think there is a human aspect of this that we're and we need to make sure we're meeting that capacity. We believe that our journey mapping in this space. We found that parents have two jobs to be done for their kids. First, obviously, is making sure our kiddos have the right care at the time. Solve the need. The second was around parental validation. Believe it or not, it was about understanding. I want to overreact and underreact while make sure I'm doing the right thing at the right time. And I want to be seen as a good. Well, how do you be seen as good? Is ChatGPT something you can tell your friends that they feel proud of, right? And there's all right, I need to use all these sources of information, but then be connected to one. So there's always this kind of give and take between technology and answers we provide, but then what is our expertise in
Appreciate that. Nicole, this next question is for you. At TDS, you've led a shift from viewing CS as a cost center to viewing it as strategic leverage, something we just heard a little bit about. Drawing on your background in high-performance international athletics, toughness or leadership standards are required for a team to be from reactive sports to proactive technological.
Sure. So I think just as sports teaches us every day that relentless pursuit is so important. But as he was saying, there has to be a foundation, and there has to be fundamentals that you're going to make sure are kept sound. And so last year, there was a lot of work to understand what is the inventory of our current state. When I was in operations, it felt much like more like a cost center than a revenue center. We're really trying to change that to make sure that we're making the right investments. And it's inventorying what do our customers expect? What do we need to get our agents to be able to perform, to be able to provide them the services that we want? And so we identified several areas where we felt that we wanted to really focus and make sure that the foundation is set well as part of our transformation. And understanding, okay, so we're in the business of making money. We should make it easy to do business with us and easy for us to pay. So we're working on a new strategy on how they can interact with us and okay, which has been a voice of the customer concern for many years. Now we're making sure that we're listening to that and engaging those different parts of the business to make sure that what the agents are feeling every day is another big initiative that we're looking at how do we improve for the agents and our customers is we're going to use contact center as a service this year as well. And that's been something we've been working on for a long time. And so we started evaluating it at the end of 2020. And there's a lot of improvements with that that will bring very religious support is to understand, what is information they need to know about how do we serve that information up again, whether we use leverage APIs and APIs. But agents wasn't really about one, pass the let's serve it, let's serve that next, it's easier for them to do their job to go on our customers. And then there's other things that, with that foundation piece, and making sure that they can easily self-search that they can find information. And I think that's so a lot of that is all coming together. It's been pretty exciting. Passion of ours, but I think the reason why this has changed, we're able to really to be a strategic leverage and really a differentiator is because, again, it's not the business just trying to drive it. It's not just IT trying to drive it, technology. It's not just marketing trying to drive it. It's truly everybody who see that.
Well, I'm just critical. See the same.
Yeah. Just as a show of hands, how many of you have been to a doctor? The most insane question to ask. How many of you have health insurance? Right. So we ask this question first. What can differentiate us from everybody else? We are tightly affiliated with this region with colors and okay. And we choose customer experience as one of the key strategies because we believe strongly that's the best way we can differentiate from any other healthcare delivery system. As part of that, what we did is we did this what is called as a journey map. What are the touch points for any member, any patient into healthcare? The journey map is just, I think, that's a bit of stuff, right? Like fancy names. And it's very appalling to take us a step back and look at that. There are so many touch points to healthcare that we don't even think about, right? When employees like your annual open enrollment, and you get your ID cards, and then you go to a doctor, then you show ID, then you get the delivery, on and on and on. And we said, how can we reduce friction in each one of these points? So it became very clear it's not about mobile or technology or any one thing, right? We still get paper bills in the mail, right? So how can we make that easier to read? Because a lot of people prefer to get their medical bills on paper. They're not wanting to look at it in their website or whatever. So really making customer experience strategy has given us this new lens of not looking at healthcare like a cost reduction or cost center, or there is acknowledgement, there is friction in the system. And the top two, the feedback we get is affordability and access. How do we make healthcare affordable? And this is not even a political statement, it's just like we all want that, right? And reducing friction in the system, in the experience of members. I'll tell this quick 10-second thing. I still remember this when I had to drive my wife for my son's birthday. If you have kids, and I didn't even give a birth, but I was driving her for 50 minutes, and it was the most nervous 50 minutes of my life, right? And we go there. I thought it's going to be like ER, right? They put them in my in a stretcher, the baby comes out. That did not happen. When we went in, they valued the car. It was an Northwest in Chicago, and my wife she's having this, contractions, and this app. I could feel if you press the app and can see how frequently you get the contractions. Speaking of technology, and the nurse is nonchalant. And this was during COVID, and they had the plexiglass. He goes, "Ma'am, do you still have Blue Cross?" And I'm like, "Yes." So I'm thinking, okay, can this have not been done earlier so they get the baby come out? My point of this whole story is, when you're a patient, when you're a member, everything changes. I'm not sitting in this conference room trying to design personas. I'm like, how can we make it better? So with that, coming back to customer experience, I think it's very important to put ourselves in the shoes of our customers and create systems out.
Awesome. We're going to turn the corner just a little bit today to talk a little bit more about operationalizing strategy and digital capabilities. This is something you call out as a leader of behavioral operations management. You've often emphasized that excellence in CX is a game you win, but a game you play to constantly get better. Since you've built the organizational muscle for this through more than 20 strategic playbooks, can you share how you designed these to facilitate the iterative capabilities teams need to monitor, validate, and evolve digital initiatives over time? Especially when governing something as complex and dynamic as algorithmic, which for those playing is the ability to remove bias from those AI.
Yeah, that was a lot, right? So it's actually a lot simpler than you would think. When we're designing our playbooks, we start with the people, the process, and the proof. So people, what is your role going to be? Your product that you own. Data science owns our algorithms and our models. Our compliance team owns the risk mitigations and on meeting regulations. And our CX team owns clarity. Then as we think about that, building that into a process where we're finding that pre-launch what we expect to happen. At launch, how are we going to make our customers aware of the changes that we're making? Where will be some of those places where we can pull something back post-launch should we see some things that are happening that aren't there? And where we're seeing different customer groups interacting differently, whether we have to release a new feature or amp up certain models, or honestly pull the plug. Then thinking about fairness, it's not just something that you think about before you launch a feature. It's something that has to be ongoing. And it's not just the job of the CX team, it's the role of everybody that's involved. And then we really have to think about how we build it into the DNA of our organization. So how do we have the cadence to make sure that we are reviewing against a common scorecard that has both business outcomes like conversion as well as CX outcomes like clarity to the consumer, and really build the culture that you're celebrating some of those changes and that like celebrate mistakes, which is sometimes very, very hard to do. But when you do that, it allows for everybody to have vulnerability to make sure that what you're putting out in front of your customer is the best product you can.
They only celebrate the same mistake once. So Christopher, Children's Wisconsin received a Business Tech Award for rapid virtual care innovation in mental health. How do you balance the need for high velocity digital transformation with the high touch concierge style service expectations of families dealing with this?
Yeah, so this is, I think the challenge that it's had, and this is that I think this is responsible. I think most healthcare understands their specialties, their subspecialties, and resources that are resources we have. So how do you take that sort of limited how do you extend that care journey? Mental health is a great example. And we really established this as well. Mental health is a crisis in the country. It's especially a crisis in the state of Wisconsin. For the states, in terms of access, and so we said to figure out the best way to take a planning or just non-existent research in pediatric psychiatry and say, how do you extend that to all these different things? And so, technology can come into play. So we look at and say, in my role at the time, we're looking at this, we're looking at digital health. So how are we looking at things like throughout the care journey, how can we provide the right resources at the right time? In our research in doing this, by the time that you've actually decided to take your child to see something, generally that's several years after you've right? Your gas tank is all the time. You've been doing all these different things. You sort of exhausted. What we try to look at and say, how do we provide these things in the right moments ahead of time? Everybody has to And so that was how we looked and say, how do we take these things and the technology scale and where it's never going to be it's not going to be equivalent to what you get through in person with that therapist or the therapist. But we can maybe provide some resources to that would give us training as well. I can say that since we've launched that, now we were actually calling in integrating sort of like the primary place and getting that was a standard as well. Technology will always have to play a role in institutions where it's outside of it.
Thank you. Our next topic is around the future of interaction with AI. Steve, we'll start with you on this one. As Reports continues to innovate, how are you architecting your modern technology stack, things like Otter, such that, to ensure that the digital front door for your customers feels unified for members across state lines, different processes, all of the functions?
The first question to ask is the definition of digital front door. Like it was assumed for years that's your website or their mobile app, but that is changing actually. The digital front door, for example, for you have to flip the coin and ask where do your customers, whether the patients, members go to seek help. 2 years ago, there was the data point that came out that the Google search for physical therapy had gone significantly down because people are going to Instagram Reels and TikTok to find stretches. And I know one person laughed, but actually, it's real statistics, which makes sense because I go there to find all my things to learn. So digital front door is becoming really that smartphone in your hand, right? How can we deliver it? However, that is not the end all be all. What we're trying to think is going back to the previous point I was making, what are the touch points between us and our members? And how do we make this touch point seamless? For example, for years and years, we talked about customer service, the previous speaker. Customer service was tracked with many metrics, like how is their time to respond to calls, what's the wait time, how many volume of calls you got. Volume is not a translation to customer experience. It's sometimes inverse. For example, if we get 10,000 calls a month, the goal is to reduce it to 9,000 calls. And nobody enjoys, how many of you enjoy calling any customer service from their insurance company and pressing 6 and 4 and 8 and waiting in line, right? And then I also have an accent, so they text me to speak and they can't understand what I'm saying. Like, okay. So the design right now is just simplification. I want to reduce friction. It's not the Uber model where if I'm assuming most of you use some kind of ride share, Uber being one. Of all the criticism the brand had, one of the things the founder was very insistent on is to reduce clicks and friction in the mobile app. Hence, they never had tips in the first 5 years of the app because that's another thing you have to do because automated. And think about your experience when you take the ride share in Uber or any system. It's somewhat seamless, and as well as when you get off, you get that survey that you take, right? 5 star, clean car, good driver, blah blah blah. Now, that experience was imagined by somebody. Hey, there's a lot of friction in taxi cab. How can we make it easier? They're very insistent. They have a way to their driving it. Similarly, it's unfair to compare healthcare to Uber, but we can bring similar experience to healthcare where it's already very emotional. People are upset, people are sick, their kid is sick. What can we do to reduce the friction? So it's really not about the technology we use, it's about the understanding our members and reducing the number of frictions, and then continuously improving it. Use it with the customers and get back and reduce more. That's where we invest heavily on simplification for the member to a point where we actually changed our model and we sponsor badges and rewards you can see it in those stadiums. Courts makes it easy for you. If you look at it, you won't even know it's healthcare. But that's kind of what we're driving towards. How can we make it easy for our members to feel?
Yes, I really resonate with making it easy to do business with, or easy for customers or patients to interact. And that's been top level goal, certainly at TDS. And I think that's so important because when you think about what it is that we can do, and sometimes you get in a trap, and I've been in this trap in the past. But I think that is some brand, the project that takes 2 years to deploy, and that's gonna be the thing that's gonna make the biggest difference. But oftentimes, it's looking at customer journey, and it's by smaller things that have maybe little efforts that deploy that have that kind of value, that are really gonna make that journey of that customer successful, and they're gonna think, wow, this company this is good, and have that positive experience. So we found sometimes it's all those little things that add up that make that positive experience where it doesn't necessarily be large enough to your company.
Lisa, for you, as you shared, you're in a B2B2C or business to business to customer embedded insurance model. Technology is often a flow. How do you use behavioral operations management to ensure that a personalized recommendation in a third-party workflow still fosters that long-term brand trust, not being the direct interaction?
Yeah, so I'm going to parrot some of the things that other people have said here, and for context, especially in the product role that I work in, we don't sell insurance in our own flow. We're selling it in our customer or our distribution partners flow to the consumer. So we really do have the mantra of experiences made easy, because no credit union is going to let me up their loan application with a 12-page insurance sales opportunity. So as we think about that, we really have to think about who are our stakeholders. First, customer, the distribution partner. Are we going to be able to represent their brand efficiently and effectively? We're built in and using their technology partners. I'm integrated with over 12 technology partners in different point of sale systems, and each one has its own slight nuance, but the experience has to be consistent. And then, of course, most importantly, the consumer and the job to be done. Don't know about all of you, and you probably can relate to this. Insurance isn't something that you are super jonesing to go buy tomorrow. And it has inherent and skepticism. And what we deliver is on a promise to build peace of mind. So as I'm doing that, I have to think about the job I have to do, explaining what my product does, being very transparent about the cost, and ensuring that also that consumer can feel confident that I'm not pushing something out there, but they can confidently hold the decision themselves. And thinking about that holistically across all of those points and making sure, again, back to the first question, that there's not some type of bias that will push somebody into a decision that they're not comfortable with, is really very, very important to us for building that trust amongst an ecosystem of partners.
Well, the foundation is perfect. Awesome. So as we shift a little bit to scaling empathy and human elements, Nicole, to start with you, you served on the board of the Customer Experience Telco Sales Association in a very dynamic industry where speed is becoming a non-negotiable. How do you reskill frontline agents to handle what one could call the fine timing layer of humans interaction? Taken off the plate by
Absolutely. So in telecommunications, you have many years as a race to the top of speed, and that is the difference here. However, now it's really what we can deliver from that customer experience is going to make or break whether or not we can target customers or the customers that we have. In our business, we're evolving into new markets, and that reputation and that experience is going to drive our success. So, are we favored in the market? Are we having complete customer experiences that are going to deliver reputation positively? And so there's a lot of work going on how we create not only just the marketing that awareness in the market, but then also making sure that we're empowering and employing our students with that value proposition. What is going to be important to those dollars that are coming in? They not know much about students. How do we call it? information and these tools. I was able to talk through that and do some player in their space. And so some of the things that we're looking at is, as an activist, really pull that out of this. So they have the tools for characters. They don't have to go to a thousand cost processes and try to do through the information. Let's serve it up. I know that it's going to be Facebook coming in from the market. We can serve that up to them. We're talking about something. I think it's concept to me is really important. And that's part of that human side is making sure that our agents are prepared to understand that. Another thing is understanding our agents and the sentiment and maybe what involved is if there's something that is, they're going to have tools that are going to help them understand the sentiment not really well. How else our support staff also understand in real time what the sentiment is. Are we having an area that is calling in and just, having some negative experiences, how can we act? And a lot of that is just really identifying what place working with us now again, it's exciting, having the leverage to support technologies, but at the heart of it, and what's going to be the anchor is the place that we have and support them
I know that there's probably a lot of data that is falling across the board, but being drastically different. I'm sure there's some things very well. I had to train our teams to handle that difference when we have AI taking care of anything we need to have.
I can go with it. Speaking of technology and customers, going back to my photo with the top story. I didn't have my driver's license on me, but I didn't have my insurance on me. Like I didn't have the ID card, and I thought, you know what? I have the Amazon mobile app. I just log in and show the ID card. I logged in. It said, "This place cannot be reached." So I did not have my insurance on me, but I was able to show all the one. But it's really, if you go back 20, 25 years, a lot of companies, every company was trying to go from mainframe to a client server. If you're a tech or tech adjacent, you will follow my story here. And we took everything that was running on a mainframe and we put it on a client server, like Paradigm. No business process was improvised, no optimization was done, generally speaking. And there's a sequence of implementations, and just raise your hand and audio if you know what I'm talking about. SAP implementation, PeopleSoft implementation, Salesforce, CRM, ERP, and we got as a community so caught up in the technology, right? Like this is going to help. I think Nicole was saying that this is going to be the next shiny object. This is going to solve the problems. I think we incrementally made progress. It's not good for any of those brands. However, with now AI, Copilot, Gen AI, the key to success is to disrupt business processes. It's not only implementing those AI agents or chasing. Everybody's going to implement some form of it, whether you're some or with some vendors. So the key term, what Lisa mentioned, is ecosystem. Now we use Epic, my chapters mentioned, shout out Epic, and it's an ecosystem. And they have to connect with other partners. Similarly, Microsoft ecosystem, that's where the Copilot lives. There is the Google ecosystem. The consumer should actually have no visibility to that, right? When you go to a website, it will say SAP or PeopleSoft. Now it has to be seamless. It has to tell your brand, this is course, and this is what we want to do. So our take is, and I'm hoping most companies will go in that direction. Whatever tech stack, whatever friction point we have should be seamless with the customer. They get what they want at the right cost, at the right time, and they can reflect and say, okay, I'll come back to this brand for more.
Add on to that too, because somebody who has digital all the time typically doesn't like to talk about the fact that we live in a multi-channel world, but for me, that's been a very, very important thing that I tried to build across the company, is that in order to really serve our consumer, it is going to be multi-channel. multi-touch approach. And it is important that we are learning from both. So, for instance, I go out and meet with the people on the front lines that sell our products on a daily basis to hear the language that they're using to be able to explain the products to the customers so that I can interpret that back into digital flows. And then on the opposite side, we're finding when a consumer runs through a digital flow, they're actually taking bigger packages than what is sold in the face-to-face channel. So left to their own devices, they're actually picking packages that have robust options for them. So how do I train those frontline people to really understand that there might be some of their own internal biases that could be impacting what they're offering to the customers that they're serving, and really thinking about that ecosystem again across all of those points really helps you think about how you work offline, etc.
And so if you don't, for you to share that communication is important in any industry, but critically in healthcare. One way Children's does that is by helping families before and after visits with targeted resources and communications through a digital care prescribing platform. How does your team use customer research to validate that those digital communications are actually reducing patient anxiety rather than adding to their digital?
I think this kind of builds a lot of the conversation we're talking about here, which is like how do we create systems that really help these immersive interactions. So I think that's what we really leaned into a lot. We had thousands of different resources, right? We have all sorts of ways to live, and and we've got different programs we're looking involved in. Education, we want to teach them, we want to connect them with sometimes to care tools, we've got all these things that we're trying to shove into preparing them for the. And so when we put in what we call our digital care prescribing platform, we said, all right, where can we take this and where can we make it easy for our staff? Before, how do it needs to be simple and easy to work for. We tried all sorts of different apps. Sure, individually were great, couldn't even get much because it was just too difficult to get those to workflow. So we needed to make it simple. We needed to put it in screens and this basis. And then we had to go a step further, and we had to just because it was even making it super simple. You have to click this button, put this thing, this point. So what we do today is, office visits. You get a year and a half, we have a series of resources to say, here's what we're talking about. Here's all the, here's what the vaccines are. Here's what we're doing. Milestone. So make sure we're prepared to have that conversation. We're trying to really maximize the moments that we have together. And what we found is that not necessarily that we reduce the office time, reduce the amount of micro messages that we reduce the quality, right? We reduce the quality of the conversation. And so sometimes we would have sometimes just trying to maximize what we're looking at. As part of putting all these in, because we have so many people trying to do so many things, and they're send all these new down. Send this thing out to the said, well, that's nice, but we have to have this orchestrated system. Otherwise, it makes no sense to us. Right? And so we measure everyone, right? So we know how many times they clicked on that video. We know how many times that they read that newsletter because we need to make sure that we're valuing their time as much as our own, as much as we make. It's so hard saying to a nurse that's put all this energy into this one handout that she wants to give every single time. So it turns out nobody looks at it. So this is not necessarily the most effective tool for you. So it's a little bit of bringing the world of marketing and engagement, customer experience back to the medical world. Say, how is this working? I think digital is just a great work because they said, well, gosh, I'm getting 20% engagement with that sheet. We had 0 before, so you have no idea how to measure that. So, this is progress. And for those of us that worked in marketing, so
better than our email. Now, and we start to wrap up prepared dialogues. The final topic, and this is going to go to all of you, should start with Nicole, whatever we went this way. Really focusing on ROI reckoning, this idea of value metrics, how we kind of understand the impact we're making. We're certainly seeing a shift from vanity metrics like NPS to value-based indicators like customer lifetime value, effective escalation. How are your respective organizations quantifying the human premium in a way that resonates for the customer, but also for the C-suite?
So I think we're doing this in a couple of ways, and certainly there are still, other metrics to set that are still tracked over time. But one of the things that we talk about a lot is personal expectation, because what we found related to negative interactions is that issue or overlooked. And back when I was in the contact center, there was a shift in evolution as we were away from, as Ty was saying, average time is important from a workforce management perspective. Well, that's what we're measuring. That's what we're measuring. So we're really looking at, and we have to I think a lot of those metrics at TDS we are customers and customers, because we want to make sure that we're better practice and making sure that we aren't disincentivizing an agent from caring for the customer the way we need to. We're also looking at containment. So how we have provide self-service in our web, digital, and how many of those interactions are able to solve without actually human. But also that is until what's not working and what is, which is also inform legacy. So I think the board is there's a lot of looking at as far as what that might look like. There's definitely some changes that
So customer satisfaction is an interesting sort of hot button issue in healthcare. Right? Does anyone else seen the series? In one of the first episodes, it's a normal listening to. I mean, everything is just absolute chaos and stuff. So it's just they're in an ER, everything's sort of crazy, and a hospital administrator goes on and starts talking to them about his customer satisfaction scores. For those of them who have been sort of but like it's a great point of like what mission are you sort of driving to? Are we a customer satisfaction organization? Our mission is to make kids the healthiest. Wisconsin is the healthiest nation, right? It doesn't say that they're going to make parents the healthiest. So there's this like tension that happens. We start talking about what is that sport. And I just had a doctor who just joined us recently. I went to meetings to go talk about this and stuff. I'm comfortable. It's like, well, I don't like the idea of having a coursework. And the way I explained it to them is like, well, you shouldn't care about it. They asked me, that coursework is a reputation measure. It's a measure of earning based on the sum of all the interactions that you're talking about. Right? What you should focus on is things in our surveys that are really important. Are you showing respect? Are they able to care for the kids at home? These things that are associated with well-being. Everything else will take care of itself. If you do those things, right? And so there's a little bit of like, you have to kind of frame these things in a way that matters for this particular areas. It's the same way, if we look at what we talk about is are rich in personal connection, interactions with usually there's but we lack in systemic connections to healthcare in general. There's so many opportunities where just things can get simple like that. So I'm talking to the doctor about trying to improve the course of the clinic, and saying, well, it's the call signs. So, but they look at all these other things. Look at the comments, right? That they're not doing these things. Like, that's true, but we're all sort of in this together. If we all do our jobs and we all go through this, then
yeah, and I think when you run what good CX looks like is when, if you work for an insurance company, your legal risk and compliance team wants to listen to your calls. Or that you're able to get your product team to understand that your clarity metrics is because the product is an issue. And so I oftentimes think about some of those individual scores. Yeah, they're great, but what is what you're actually doing about that and how you build, especially across shared services, a desire to look at those and have them understand their impacts to something like risk and compliance doesn't often before in my organization feel like they had accountability towards clarity and now they do. And so to me that's what it looks like across those entities.
Before COVID, for a couple of years, I was co-hosting and co-producing a podcast with a bunch of friends, not work related, not safe for work. One of the segments we did was we went to Amazon.com and Yelp.com. We picked up randomly one-star reviews. This is a true story. You just search for Bible and one-star review. Somebody says bad writing. Or in Yelp, you pick up Niagara Falls and somebody wrote 1 star, too much water. So you can fact check on this. So on the clock, and as a CRO at Internet Health, we were like 500 in the App Store in the health category, which is not good for a company that is number one in healthcare in the whole world. So we were trying to do this analysis, sentiment analysis of the comments, feedback, and have this focus, and everything is iterative. And it's very clear. If you throw money at a problem, it will not solve the problem. You need to understand your customers. And some of the things that was pretty clear, which we did not realize with the mobile app, is people went to the app and you can do this thought experiment with your own health insurance, healthcare, any product for your self-service, any mobile app use. People go to the app store and they complain about their benefits in the app store. People say, my health insurance doesn't cover this medicine. They are not, they don't even care. This is the app store. They want the feedback about the app because emotions are involved. We all do some things about emotions. When I get very emotional, I eat fish. That's just my thing, right? So tying that to like that, now we're looking at, okay, there is customer feedback in the app store. It's really a gift because now we can take that, do a sentiment analysis and send it to the benefits department. Hey, people are complaining about you in my app, or things like that. So we started looking at who's using the mobile apps. And for example, there's this notion that people who are Medicaid and not use mobile apps, which is completely false. People who are, because everybody has a phone these days, Android, and they can actually access their decent programs to the mobile app. So we got a lot of feedback from that. So we started focusing on, okay, why are they giving feedback? Think about this. When do you give a feedback? Most likely when you're upset. And when you're happy, you're not going to be like 5 stars. Like, so, especially for healthcare. So we started pushing those, like the push notifications. If somebody's searching for a diagnostic code and they found the answer in 2 seconds, we celebrate with that. So the settings completely changed because now it's like Google, right? You can actually rate the app when you're not in this current situation. So we started collecting various data points and saying where are the opportunities to improve. And then we're looking at some terminologies. If you pull up the app, it says your accumulator balances. Who the hell understands what is an accumulator balance? Right? People don't speak like that. So how can we say your health insurance balances or HSA balances? So we started turning this to English. So the point is, it's a journey for the people building the experience to understand the member journey. Right? You got to go through it, you have the leadership and the strategy and the investments. Now, type that to like, and the headline here is really we took the mobile app to number 1 in the App Store over an 18-month period because it was a focused effort, it's a team effort. Now, it takes all the learnings from the current role. We're looking at NPS, Net Promoter Score, on a monthly basis. And here's a fun fact I learned over this. People who select their insurance, you have family members who might have Medicare Advantage or individual, they actually rate their insurance higher than people who get it through their employers. Think about this. If you get through employers, and this is neither good or bad, you have less control over your options. Your employer offers it. If you go to the marketplace and you're selling through ACA or Medicare Advantage, then you have more control. And also we think, how is it? Elders have more time to go and give feedback because there's a sticky factor. So we take the Net Promoter Score, we look at it on a monthly basis very diligently because customer experience is one of our strategy and we want to see what the sentiment is. And then we take CLV, which is customer lifetime value. The difference here is Net Promoter Score is how the customers feel at the time of service. CLV is really doesn't matter. So if a Medicare Advantage member calls from a call center, they get a bad experience, they give low ratings, that is NPS. If they leave our insurance, that is CLV. Didn't matter. So now we are trying to realize, okay, we can do better. We can actually, going back to my favorite point about friction points and giving them answers quickly, reducing the cost. So there is value in it, but it is not a point and shoot. It is not a project. And it is not a technology that is going to save you. It is that continuously understanding your customer, using these indicators and data points, and improving your product and service is really the foundation, like some of the databases that can really make an exponential difference in the marketplace.
All right. We still have 5 to 7 minutes, which I think we can work in 1 to 2 more questions. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. I believe I'm down with a crunchy mic, so I'm going to walk around and let you use mine a little bit here. But who's got a question like that? Oh, yeah. Hello, everybody. When it comes to your program that you run, how do you, is there a place that you go to manage everybody who's a part of it? Like, where do you go as a team, whether it's digitally or in person, but mostly digitally, I'm asking about, to make sure that everyone's on the same page in the components of the program that you manage are operating the way you want them to? How do you manage that?
You mean geographically dispersed team?
Yes, ma'am.
Those.
So I can talk to when we're trying to release a new product or some new features. Some of you probably use Jira. We use Azure DevOps API. And in there, we're very, very carefully to make sure that we have all of our documentation, including our playbooks, project plans, OKRs are, so that everybody who is involved has access to those and knows where we are at any time. Post-release, we don't have just the typical Scrum reviews. I actually hold a demo where I am demoing real-world calls or real-world playthroughs for all stakeholders so that they are all able to see what is our customers are experiencing. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it's always a challenge that we're kind of looking for this next week. Healthcare, the ones who will be it's so we have so many different kinds of sex tools that we're trying to think of called automated reports. Yeah, some service type of tools that we're kind of doing now. So it's just I would say yes. These things of just hold, if anything, I struggle with simple operations that feel like only letting look at my field controls. So we try to create some executive summary so you have access to this information. You have accounts where you want key component, but we try to narrow down components of priorities and matrices. We can say what's correlated and say take between these two things. Right? This is what you should be focusing on. So I think a lot of times our job is more distilling information and signals notice.
One of the challenges I think is we are trying to just Outlook calendar 8 hours and we are to wait for a 30-minute meeting to come to life. Real-time information goes a long way, and I do believe that with the likes of Copilot you can empower your colleagues to get real-time information. For example, I don't know, Christopher mentioned quite a number of times that it's complex. We have something called policy and procedure, which has like 10 million documents, and we look at it every day. Every single day, 9,500 documents get opened. Can you imagine how many times people have to open and references? Because it's highly regulated. We have so many policies, procedure, enrollment, etc. What we did early on, we plugged in a Copilot agent towards policy and procedure folder, which is a SharePoint, and we really reduced the clicks and links in the time to real time. Very simple. It was an experiment. Or think about this: if we can extrapolate it to a scale, how easy people can find whether it is switching information, putting information. So I think it's just how we use the tools rather than what the tools are.
Oh, do you want to share the lines? All right. Oh, good. Yeah, we got 2 more minutes. Okay. I didn't do my buttons.
Hi, I was just wondering, it's great to have leaders that are on board and really understand this and the product manager, product owner, you know, when they buy in, it's great. How have you navigated the leaders?
Nobody wants to jump on that one first.
Yeah, so I think part of what has been successful for us is really being that picture of leaders that may understand. You know, obviously there's different departments that may feel they're more or less impacted by this perspective too, it really does. And so what we've done is make sure that we're really painting that picture of what is the technology or the process change that we're going to enact, and how is that going to really move the organization? So what's going to resonate maybe with someone in finance, maybe with someone in marketing, really making sure that you're pulling up those value propositions that when you're trying to value for some leaders that speak to those things that you know might pull up their you know interest in what they value for the organization. So I think storytelling and really showing it in action, not just saying, oh, this is going to say this is going to bring this. Or social and what's going to happen.
I can give an example too where I made a pitch to increase my primary research budget. Probably everybody who's had a research budget is cut. And one of my biggest naysayers was in our sales organization. Because again, you know, the dollar I spent on primary research is a dollar that dollar X that he needs to bring in on sales. And what was really important, again, is tying it back to the business outcomes that we use, but also being able to leverage that primary research not only to drive product design, but also for him to be able to use it in his sales tools, in his sales decks. So I think it is, how do you as a CX practitioner think about how you can permeate the whole organization with one of your functions, and because you are kind of an expense. And so how do you think about delivering the conversion value as well as some of that subject matter expertise that your company is trying to get to marketplace?
I just because I think I've actually had this conversation with our CFO, and I think the way I was sort of forming that is customer voice reduces risk, right? And so a great example of this is we have Shine Graphics over sort of before like this refunding app that we have download this thing and it's going to guide you through it's actually a total disaster actually. But had we actually done the consumer research that we did later, it's actually not. So there's so many opportunities to integrate with signal data that helps us improve decision making and reduces kind of our risk of our investment. So that's the elevator pitch I would give to a CFO. And there's certainly people that just don't see their place in it. And I think storytelling message is really important to say, all right, can they tie their work to use customer score, tell staff and say, all right, how's this? Well, that's one thing, and like it's a friction message. But then when we can kind of tie it back to part of these anxiety is even sort of tied back to the mission. And so I think it's creating those connection points for everybody.
Especially now, I used to computer in a restart computer on Monday morning with the patching that happens. And I used to say for years that you can patch people, right? There is no fixed back for them. And where there are people that's going to be difference of opinion, conflict, and that's probably why they got hired, right? The strategy officer or the strategy team is all about vision and the bullying thing, the operations things like him and I just need to answer a call and fast. So it's like left brain, right brain. One of the things in Quartz we do is we call it the healthy or we really want packages, it's a big software team called Finance Function Software Team. It starts with the trust layer and it goes to business. What we try to practice is having an aligned leadership team. That's step one, it's a forcing process. I would think consultants and authors always come up with the 4 steps, 4 P's, 3 R's, 3 C's. Aligned leadership team is just making sure we can be candid at any point in time. So everybody has a voice, everybody has a seat at the table, everybody brings something to the table. We're not going to support others just because 2 of them out of 8 are not supporting it in the security, but we are going to listen to them, hear them out. Second one is creating clarity. Most teams, most companies don't align because of lack of clarity, and they are either too busy or too shy to ask for clarity. More communicate clarity, reinforce clarity. And we repeat this over and over in every meeting. And the way that we ask, say, I'm seeking clarity, or I'm confused, or I'm concerned. It has come a long way. In 18 months, I've seen that people are kind of shedding their inhibitions and saying, I was not getting it 3 months ago, I'm not getting it, or I'm not on board, but because we decided together, I'll support it. So it's okay not to agree, but it's important to come into the listen. So I think it starts at the top in some cases. And the leaders have to set the stage and say that this is something important for the brand and our customers, and we have to do this, whatever it means for you.
And that's all we got time for. Let's hear it. We are running up against launch time. Go through this very quickly. Look at a confirmation message that talks a little bit about voice of customer experimentation people like to. So they're giving 2 options to provide feedback to this event. After the event, now, if you want to start them for the program, there's some more. But in addition to standard culture survey, we've worked with a company called Person Circle, which is a startup here being Wisconsin, who's developing a more of a qualitative research look at the traditional survey. So on here, full transparency is the response that I got from the pre-event survey. You're not going to see any detail, it's fully anonymized, but just